The galaxy was on the brink of chaos, and at the center of it all was a small, fragile world, one that had never known war until now. The peaceful planet of the Freйлin was about to face its annihilation. The Drakthar Empire, a ruthless and technologically superior alien race, had set their sights on it. With their colossal fleet, the Drakthar were preparing to wipe out the Freylin, leaving no survivors. The Freylin, a species once known for their great minds and technological prowess, now found themselves powerless against the overwhelming force of their enemies. They were an advanced race, but their physical weakness made them easy targets for the larger, more aggressive civilizations. Their fate seemed sealed, and the galaxy's bigger powers mocked them, seeing them as weaklings with no chance of survival. In the midst of this destruction, something unexpected happened. As the Drakthar ships descended upon the Freylin homeworld, a final desperate signal was sent across the galaxy. The message was simple but urgent. Help us. Earth, please help us. The Freylin, with their vast technological knowledge, had never thought they would need help from a species so far behind them in technological development. But now, with their backs against the wall and no other options left, they reached out to the one place they had never considered before, Earth. This planet, inhabited by humans, had never played a significant role in the galactic community. The humans were known to be primitive, unremarkable, a species that was only starting to explore the stars. To the advanced civilizations of the galaxy, Earth was nothing more than a footnote in the grand story of the universe. But the humans had something that the Freylin did not: the will to fight. As the message echoed through the void of space, Earth's response came quicker than anyone had anticipated. A small fleet of human warships, led by the experienced and battle-hardened Captain Bonner, emerged from the dark reaches of space. The humans had been watching the galactic conflicts unfold from the sidelines for years, but they had never imagined they would be pulled into a war of this magnitude. Now, with the fate of the Freylin and possibly the galaxy hanging in the balance, they were ready to step up. The Drakthar, of course, laughed at the humans' audacity. Primitive humans, they sneered. They will be crushed like insects beneath our heel. To them, the idea of Earth even attempting to intervene in galactic affairs was laughable. They had dealt with countless species before, all of them more advanced than humans. The Drakthar believed that their superior firepower and tactical expertise would quickly eliminate this insignificant force. But they had underestimated one thing: the human spirit. As the small fleet of human warships entered the battle, the Drakthar's mocking laughter quickly turned to confusion. The human ships, though smaller and technologically inferior to the Drakthars, moved with a precision and cunning that the Drakthar had not anticipated. For the first time, the Drakthar felt the sting of being outmatched, not in firepower, but in tactics. The humans used their ship's agility and unorthodox combat style to gain the upper hand. The Drakthar's massive warships, designed for brute force, were unable to keep up with the humans' unexpected movements. Captain Bonner's strategy was simple but effective: hit hard, hit fast, and keep moving. The humans didn't have the luxury of relying on sheer numbers, but they had something far more dangerous: the ability to think on their feet. Each human ship was equipped with advanced cloaking devices, a technology that the Drakthar had not encountered before. As the battle raged on, the cloaked ships darted in and out of the chaos, striking at the Drakthar fleet from unexpected angles. The Drakthar had no idea where the next strike would come from, and their sense of superiority quickly began to fade. At the heart of the battle, Captain Bonner stood at the helm of his ship, leading his crew with the calm focus of a man who had seen the worst the universe could throw at him. His face was set in grim determination, but inside, he knew that this was their only chance to prove that humanity was more than just a species that could be ignored. The Freylin watched in awe as the humans, against all odds, held their own against the seemingly invincible Drakthar fleet. The Freylin had always been known for their intellect, but the humans showed them something more: heart. The Freylin began to realize that while their technology was unmatched, it was humanity's resilience that gave them hope. As the battle progressed, the Drakthar, who had initially mocked the humans, started to feel the pressure. The humans weren't fighting like any species they had ever encountered. They didn't rely solely on their ship's power or advanced weapons. Instead, they relied on something that was uniquely human: adaptability. One by one, the Drakthar warships fell. It wasn't a swift victory, but the tide was undeniably turning. Captain Bonner and his crew were relentless, using every resource at their disposal to outwit and outmaneuver the Drakthar. With every passing minute, the humans' reputation grew. The Drakthar, who had once laughed at Earth's involvement in the war, now found themselves on the defensive, unsure of how to counter this new and unexpected threat. But even in the midst of this unexpected success, the humans knew they were not yet out of danger. The Drakthar Empire was vast, and this battle, though a small victory, was only the beginning. As Captain Bonner surveyed the battlefield, he realized that this was more than just a fight for the Freйлin. It was a fight for humanity's place in the galaxy. The humans had been underestimated, written off as a species unworthy of respect. But now, they had the chance to prove the galaxy wrong. The suspense hung heavy in the air as the battle raged on, with no clear victor yet. The Drakthar, though stunned, were far from defeated, and the humans, despite their initial success, had only begun to scratch the surface of the war that lay ahead. The Freylin were on the brink of extinction, and the humans had just thrown a wrench into the plans of the galaxy's most powerful empire. But what would happen next? Would humanity's gamble pay off, or would they be crushed under the weight of galactic politics and superior technology? The answer was still unknown, but one thing was certain: the galaxy would never see humanity as a weak, insignificant species again. The battle had just begun, and Earth was ready to fight for its place among the stars. The aftermath of the first skirmish was a strange mix of victory and uncertainty. The humans, despite their technological inferiority and small numbers, had managed to hold their ground against the Drakthar Empire in a way no one had expected. But it wasn't enough. The Drakthar had the advantage, and the battle had only delayed the inevitable. The humans were outgunned, their warships smaller and less powerful than the massive Drakthar fleet. As Captain Bonner surveyed the wreckage of the battle, he couldn't shake the feeling that it was only a matter of time before the Drakthar regrouped and launched another, more devastating attack. On the Freylin homeworld, the situation was growing more dire with every passing hour. The once proud species, known for their technological advancements, were now on the brink of extinction. Their homeworld was being ravaged, and their fleet was decimated. Desperation was setting in. They had never imagined that they would need help, let alone from a species as new and untested as humans. But now, with the Drakthar closing in, they realized they had no choice. The Freylin reached out again, sending a message to Captain Bonner and his crew. A message that could change everything. The Freylin were offering something invaluable. In exchange for humanity's protection, they were willing to share their most advanced technology: stealth cloaks that would make human ships nearly invisible to the enemy, powerful energy weapons capable of piercing even the strongest shields, and AI systems so sophisticated they could predict enemy movements with uncanny precision. The Freylin were not just offering their technology, they were offering humanity a chance to survive and fight back. But there was a catch. The Freylin's offer came with a condition. Humanity had to promise to protect them from the Drakthar. The Freylin were too weak to defend themselves, and they needed a strong ally to hold off the coming invasion. Without humanity's help, their species would surely fall. It was a risky proposition, but with the Drakthar already on their doorstep, Captain Bonner knew there was little choice. As the message was relayed back to Earth, there was little time to waste. The humans had to act fast. Captain Bonner and his crew discussed the Freylin's proposal in heated debate. They knew the odds were against them, but they also knew that if they didn't act, the galaxy would fall under Drakthar rule. Earth was a new player in the galactic theater, and no one knew what to expect from humanity. Many of the larger, more established species considered humans a joke, primitive, unimportant, and incapable of standing up to the galactic powers. The alliance between humanity and the Fremen seemed laughable to most, but Bonner and his crew understood something that no one else did. Humanity was unpredictable. The Fremen, too, had their own challenges. They had never worked alongside humans before, and their once proud species had been humbled by the very need to rely on a species they had once considered beneath them. They watched as humanity, seemingly with no regard for the odds, worked tirelessly to adapt to their advanced technology. The humans didn't complain. They didn't question the difficulty of the task ahead. They just kept working, day after day, knowing that if they failed, everything would be lost. It wasn't long before the Fremen began to see something in the humans that they hadn't expected. Resilience. Where the Fremen had once seen humanity as weak, they now began to see something stronger, something far more dangerous to their enemies. Humanity's ability to push through adversity, to face impossible odds and keep going, was something the Fremen couldn't ignore. They had been wrong to dismiss the humans as an unworthy ally. In the humans, they saw a species that didn't give up, no matter what. But the alliance was still uneasy. The Fremen had their own methods and ways of doing things, and the humans were no exception. Despite the growing mutual respect, there was still an underlying tension between the two species. The Fremen weren't used to relying on others, and the humans, though they respected the Fremen's technology, weren't used to taking orders from another species. The two sides were learning to trust each other, but the trust was fragile. Every time the Fremen showed hesitation or doubt, the humans grew more determined to prove their worth. Captain Bonner understood the importance of this alliance. He knew that humanity's role in this conflict was still uncertain, but he also knew that they had something the galaxy didn't expect: the ability to surprise. The Drakthar may have laughed at humanity, but Bonner had seen firsthand the strength that came from humanity's will to survive. It wasn't just about technology or firepower. It was about fighting for something bigger than oneself. That was something the Drakthar didn't understand, and it was something they would soon regret underestimating. As the Drakthar Empire prepared for their next assault on the Fremen homeworld, tensions were high. The humans and Fremen worked together, their alliance growing stronger as they prepared for the inevitable. The Fremen's technology was ready, but the humans still had their work cut out for them. The Drakthar were a powerful force, and humanity's small fleet was no match for the might of the Galactic Empire. But in the face of overwhelming odds, the humans were not afraid. Captain Bonner stood at the helm of his ship, surrounded by his crew, his family. They had come a long way since their first battle, and though they were still vastly outgunned, they were no longer the same species that had first faced the Drakthar. They had grown. They had adapted. They had formed an alliance that no one had expected, and that was something the galaxy would soon learn to fear. The Drakthar had thought they could crush humanity with ease. They had underestimated the humans' ability to fight back, to survive in the face of destruction. And now, as the humans and Fremen prepared for the next battle, the Drakthar would see the full force of that determination. The humans were not just fighting for their survival, they were fighting for the survival of their new allies, the Fremen, and they would not go down without a fight. The alliance was uneasy, but it was strong, and in that strength, humanity had found something more powerful than any weapon: the will to prevail. The galaxy trembled as the Drakthar Empire, enraged by the unforeseen resistance put up by the human-Fremen alliance, prepared to unleash their fury. The Drakthar, with their unparalleled fleet and immense firepower, launched an all-out offensive to crush the alliance once and for all. Their warships, massive and imposing, moved swiftly toward the Fremen homeworld, where the final battle would be fought. The humans, despite their technological advancements, were still vastly outgunned. The Fremen, though powerful in intellect, were physically fragile and unable to hold their own against the Drakthar's overwhelming might. The pressure was mounting, and the time to act was now. Captain Bonner stood at the helm of his ship, his mind racing with the plan they had been preparing for weeks. The Freelan's advanced cloaking technology had given them a fighting chance, and the humans were ready to strike back. The cloaking devices, now integrated into their warships, allowed the humans to disappear from the Drakthar's radar, launching attacks from unexpected directions. It was their chance to turn the tide. As the Drakthar launched their assault, the humans and Freelan, working in tandem, executed their plan. The battle began in the skies above the Freelan homeworld, where missiles and energy blasts lit up the atmosphere in a fiery spectacle. The Drakthar warships advanced relentlessly, their massive guns firing powerful beams of energy that sliced through the space around them. But the humans weren't easy targets. As the Drakthar fired, the human ships, cloaked and silent, emerged from the shadows, striking fast and hard. Missiles streaked through the void, hitting the Drakthar warships with precision. Energy blasts from human ships surged through the skies, targeting the Drakthar fleet's weak points. The humans had the advantage of surprise, and they used it to devastating effect. The Drakthar ships, unable to detect the cloaked human vessels, were left vulnerable, their shields failing one by one as the humans pounded them from all sides. It was a breathtaking display of skill, as human ships moved with unmatched agility, attacking in waves, constantly shifting their positions, never allowing the Drakthar a chance to regroup. But the battle wasn't just being fought in space. On the ground, in the heart of the Drakthar flagship, a daring assault was underway. Captain Bonner had chosen to lead the charge, alongside his best soldiers, in a close-quarters battle that would take them deep into enemy territory. The Drakthar flagship was a monstrous vessel, its corridors twisted and labyrinthine, designed for maximum defense. But the humans had something the Drakthar didn't: the element of surprise. As they breached the flagship's outer defenses, Captain Bonner and his team used their cloaking technology to slip past the Drakthar's security systems, disappearing into the shadows. The Drakthar soldiers, towering and formidable, patrolled the corridors, but they were no match for the humans' cunning. Using their advanced AI-driven strategies, the humans were able to predict the enemy's movements with uncanny accuracy. Every step, every turn, every ambush was calculated with deadly precision. The AI integrated into the human ship's systems now provided real-time data, feeding Bonner and his team with information that allowed them to outmaneuver the Drakthar at every turn. As they advanced deeper into the flagship, the humans encountered resistance, alien soldiers armed with weapons that crackled with energy. But the humans were relentless. With each firefight, they used their cloaking technology to vanish from sight, reappearing behind the Drakthar soldiers before they even had time to react. The battle was fast and brutal, the hum of energy weapons filling the air as the humans fought tooth and nail for every inch of ground. It was close-quarters combat at its finest, with the humans relying on their agility and their superior tactics to overcome the raw strength of the Drakthar soldiers. The Drakthar flagship was a fortress, and the humans were the invaders, fighting not just for victory but for survival. As Bonner led the charge through the labyrinthine halls, his mind raced. The mission was critical, but he couldn't shake the nagging fear that it might all be for nothing. They had to succeed. If they didn't, the Alliance, and possibly the entire galaxy, would fall. But victory was within their reach. The humans fought their way toward the heart of the flagship, where the Drakthar leadership had stationed themselves. The final assault was imminent. Captain Bonner's heart pounded in his chest as he prepared to face the Drakthar's leader, an imposing alien warlord whose reputation for cruelty was known throughout the galaxy. The battle had already cost them dearly, and Bonner knew that the stakes were higher than ever. Then the unthinkable happened. Sergeant Riley, Bonner's best friend and most trusted ally, was hit during a firefight. It was a brutal, sudden blow. One moment, Riley was there, covering Bonner's back, and the next, he was gone. The alien's energy weapon had torn through Riley's chest, and the sight of his friend's lifeless body crashing to the floor was enough to stop Bonner in his tracks. For a moment, everything around him slowed. The noise of the battle faded, replaced by a deafening silence in his mind. Riley, the one person who had been by his side through every fight, every mission, every hardship, was gone. The loss was overwhelming. But Bonner couldn't afford to dwell on the grief. Riley's death, though devastating, fueled the fire inside him. He wasn't just fighting for victory anymore. He was fighting for Riley, for his crew, for humanity's future. They had come too far to turn back now. The Drakthar would pay for their arrogance, for underestimating humanity, for taking the lives of those who fought for freedom. With a newfound resolve, Bonner rallied his team, pushing forward through the corridors, cutting down Drakthar soldiers with ruthless precision. The battle intensified, and the humans pressed on, outnumbered but never outmatched. Their cloaking technology and AI-driven tactics continued to give them the edge, allowing them to strike at the heart of the Drakthar flagship. The Drakthar were relentless, but the humans were determined. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Bonner and his team reached the Drakthar warlord's command center. The confrontation was brutal, the air thick with the smell of smoke and blood as the two forces clashed in a final desperate fight. Bonner's team fought with everything they had left, using their cloaking technology to strike from the shadows, outsmarting the Drakthar at every turn. In the end, it was Bonner who delivered the final blow, using a weapon designed with the Freeland's advanced energy technology. The Drakthar warlord fell, and with him, the Drakthar's command structure began to crumble. The humans had done the impossible. They had infiltrated the Drakthar flagship, destroyed their leadership, and delivered a blow to the heart of their empire. But the victory came at a heavy price. The loss of Sergeant Riley weighed heavily on Bonner and the rest of the crew. The emotional toll of the battle was clear, but they had won. The Drakthar had been defeated in this pivotal battle, and the Human-Freelan alliance had proven itself a force to be reckoned with. But the war was far from over. The Drakthar empire was vast, and they would be back. As Bonner stood over Riley's fallen body, he made a silent vow. The battle may have been won, but the war was far from over, and he would fight, no matter the cost, until the Drakthar were finally defeated. For humanity, for Riley, and for the galaxy. This expanded versio of the alliance between humanity and the Freelan had been their greatest strength. Two species united in their determination to stop the Drakthar Empire. After their victories in the battle for the Freelan homeworld and their shocking success in the Drakthar flagship, it seemed like humanity and the Freelan might be unstoppable. But as the war raged on, cracks began to appear in the fragile unity between the two species. What seemed like an unbreakable bond was starting to unravel. It all began with a whisper, rumors that the Freelan were not as united as they appeared. There had always been some tension between the two species, but now something darker was stirring beneath the surface. Captain Bonner had never fully trusted the Freelan, despite their advanced technology. They had once considered humanity weak, and though they had grudgingly shared their technology, there had always been a feeling of something unspoken between them. But nothing could have prepared Bonner for the betrayal that would shake the foundation of their fragile alliance. A Freelan scientist, known only to a few, had secretly been working with the Drakthar. His role was never clear. He was just another brilliant mind among the many working to improve the Freelan's weapons and technology. But in the shadows, this scientist had been siphoning information, passing secrets to the Drakthar that had the potential to destroy everything the humans and Freelan had fought for. The Drakthar had learned of the Alliance's secret weapons, cloaking devices, AI-enhanced combat strategies, and advanced energy weapons, and this scientist had sabotaged them from the inside. It wasn't until the humans attempted to launch a new offensive that the sabotage was discovered. As Captain Bonner prepared for another critical strike against the Drakthar, they found that the cloaking devices no longer worked. The AI systems had been altered, feeding them faulty data. The energy weapons misfired, causing chaos instead of destruction. The humans and Freelan, both caught off guard by the sudden failure of their technology, were left exposed. It was a disaster waiting to happen, and it was clear that something far more sinister was at play. Bonner's heart sank when the truth was revealed. The Freelan scientist had been working for the Drakthar all along. His betrayal had left them vulnerable at the most crucial moment in the war. The humans had trusted the Freelan, relied on their technology, and now they were paying the price. The betrayal cut deep, not just because of the damage it caused, but because of the trust that had been shattered. Captain Bonner, ever the leader, knew that the situation could spiral out of control if they didn't act fast. The Drakthar would not wait for them to settle their differences. If the alliance broke apart, humanity would be left to face the Drakthar alone. The thought was terrifying. But what was even more terrifying was the possibility of an internal civil war between the humans and the Freelan. The humans had never trusted the Freelan completely, but now, with the betrayal hanging over them, there was a real risk that they would turn on their supposed allies. In the face of this crisis, Bonner made a bold decision. He couldn't afford to wait for the Freelan to sort out their internal conflicts. The Drakthar were closing in, and every second counted. He ordered the activation of a secret project, an army of AI-driven robots designed for rescue missions, now reprogrammed and transformed into battle-hardened warriors. These robots were equipped with the best human technology, integrated with the Freelan's advanced systems. They were unstoppable, relentless, and ready to fight. The humans had their answer to the crisis: robot warriors, and they would use them, no matter what. The robots would be the spearhead of their next offensive, leading the charge against the Drakthar, while the human fleet prepared for a more direct confrontation. Bonner knew it was a gamble. The robots were new, untested in battle, and their AI was powerful but unpredictable. But they had no choice. The betrayal had left them with little option but to rely on the technology they had developed in secret. As Bonner mobilized the robots, the tension between the humans and the Freelan continued to rise. The Freelan leaders, feeling humiliated by the betrayal, began to question their place in the alliance. Many of them wanted to cut ties with the humans entirely. They had once seen humanity as nothing more than a tool to be used. But now, they were beginning to see that humanity was no longer the weak, defenseless species they had once believed them to be. The humans had their own technology, their own strength, and their own resolve. The Freelan didn't know if they could trust humanity anymore. The humans, for their part, were torn. They had always known that the Freelan weren't perfect, but this betrayal shook them to their core. Would the Freelan ever be able to fully commit to the alliance again? And would the humans be able to forgive them? It was a question that gnawed at Bonner's mind as he prepared his forces for the battle ahead. He had no choice but to move forward, but in the back of his mind, he couldn't shake the feeling that the war was no longer just about defeating the Drakthar. It was also about whether or not the humans and Freelan could ever truly work together again. As the final battle loomed, the galaxy's future hung in the balance. Bonner had one last chance to unite the humans and the Freelan, but time was running out. The Drakthar were almost upon them, and the human-Freelan alliance was on the brink of collapse. If they couldn't pull together, the war would be lost before it had even truly begun. Bonner stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the stars, his mind heavy with the weight of the decisions ahead. He had fought through so much to get to this point, but he knew that the most important battle was yet to come. This wasn't just a war for survival, it was a war for the soul of the galaxy. If the humans and Freelan couldn't find a way to trust each other again, the galaxy would fall to the Drakthar, and everything they had fought for would be lost. The next few days would determine everything. The galaxy's future would be decided by one final, desperate push, a fight not just against the Drakthar, but against the very divisions that threatened to tear them apart. Bonner knew that the stakes had never been higher, and no matter what, he would fight with everything he had left to keep the alliance from falling apart completely. The final showdown had arrived, and the fate of the galaxy was in the balance. Captain Bonner stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the stars that stretched across the vast expanse of space. The battle was coming, and it was going to be the most difficult one yet. The Drakthar Empire, the technologically advanced enemy that had crushed civilizations with ease, was about to face something they had never anticipated: humanity. Bonner clenched his fists. The odds were against them, but they had come this far. They had fought for every inch of ground, for every life that had been lost, and now it was time to take the fight directly to the Drakthar. With their new cloaking technology, advanced AI-driven robots, and the Freeland's reinvigorated resolve, they had a chance, however slim it might be. And in a war where survival meant everything, there was no time to hesitate. The Drakthar fleet loomed ahead, a vast armada of ships far superior to anything humanity had ever faced. Their flagship, a massive, imposing warship, was at the heart of their force, a fortress in space that seemed impenetrable. Bonner knew that if they were to win, they would have to take down the flagship, cutting the heart out of the Drakthar's command. That meant leading an assault against one of the most heavily fortified vessels in the galaxy, a suicide mission by most standards. But Bonner wasn't like most captains. He had seen the worst that the universe had to offer, and he had survived. The human spirit was not something to be underestimated. And with every ally they had, humans, Freeland, and AI, he was certain they could make it happen. As the assault fleet prepared, Captain Bonner addressed his crew, a mix of human soldiers and Freeland technicians. The atmosphere was thick with tension. After everything they had been through, the battles, the betrayals, the losses, they knew this would be their final chance. "This is it." Bonner's voice was steady but firm. "We've fought for every moment we have left. We've fought for each other, and we fight now for our future. This is humanity's moment. We either rise together, or we fall alone. There's no turning back." His crew, soldiers who had seen too much death and too many sacrifices, nodded in silent agreement. They didn't need more words. They had all come to the same conclusion. This was their last shot. They would either win, or they would die trying. The fleet was ready. Their ships, cloaked by the Freeland's advanced technology, entered the battlefield, slipping past the Drakthar's defenses unnoticed. The plan was simple: strike fast, strike hard, and overwhelm the Drakthar before they could react. The Freeland would play their part, using their hacking expertise to infiltrate the Drakthar AI systems, disrupting their fleet control and causing chaos within their ranks. Meanwhile, the human soldiers, led by Bonner, would board the Drakthar flagship and neutralize the command center. Everything hinged on that moment. The Drakthar had no idea what was coming. The battle began with an explosion of energy. The cloaked ships erupted into the fray, appearing out of nowhere to strike at the Drakthar fleet. The humans' AI-driven robots, now fully integrated with the Freeland technology, fought with brutal efficiency. The Drakthar were caught off guard. Their ships scrambled, trying to re-establish control as their fleet began to splinter. But Bonner's forces were relentless. Every move was calculated, every strike precise. It was a battle like no other. Stealth attacks from cloaked ships, laser fire cutting through the darkness, and the powerful hum of energy weapons filling the void of space. The Drakthar retaliated quickly, their massive warships launching counterattacks. But the human fleet, now armed with the Freeland's superior technology, was able to counter every move. The battle raged on, but it was clear that something was shifting in the tide. The Drakthar, so accustomed to victory, were now being forced into retreat. In the midst of the chaos, Bonner led his team toward the Drakthar flagship. The ship was a beast of war, its hull thick with armor and its weapons capable of wiping out entire fleets. But Bonner and his soldiers had a plan, one that relied on more than just brute force. They had cloaks, stealth technology, and AI to guide them. As they infiltrated the flagship, they moved silently, taking out Drakthar guards with surgical precision. The deeper they went into the flagship, the more intense the fight became. The Drakthar soldiers were everywhere, and the humans had to rely on their ag-driven tactics to stay one step ahead. Each soldier was equipped with a personal cloaking device, allowing them to slip past enemies unnoticed and strike before the Drakthar could respond. It was a race against time as they pushed toward the heart of the ship, the command center. But as they neared their destination, they encountered the Drakthar general, an imposing, terrifying figure who had commanded the Empire's forces throughout the war. He stood in their way, surrounded by a cadre of elite soldiers. The moment Bonner saw him, he knew what had to be done. This was the man who had caused so much suffering, the leader of the Drakthar forces. It was him or them. There was no other option. Bonner charged forward, his combat instincts kicking in. The fight was fierce and brutal. The Drakthar general was no slouch in hand-to-hand combat, and Bonner had to use everything he had learned over the years to stay alive. The general's strength was overwhelming, but Bonner's resolve was stronger. As the two men fought, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Every strike, every move, was a matter of life or death. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Bonner landed a fatal blow. The Drakthar general fell, his lifeless body crashing to the ground. But the battle wasn't over yet. Bonner and his team fought their way to the command center, where they planted explosives and sabotaged the Drakthar's control systems. The flagship, once a symbol of the Drakthar Empire's might, began to crumble. The tide of the battle turned dramatically. As the Drakthar flagship fell, so too did the Empire's command structure. The Freelan's hacking efforts had succeeded in destabilizing the Drakthar's fleet control, and now their ships were fighting among themselves. The human forces, with their superior tactics and sheer determination, began to overwhelm the remaining Drakthar forces. Victory was within reach, but at a great cost. Bonner's team had suffered heavy losses, and the emotional toll of the battle was evident. Bonner himself was battered and bruised, but he stood tall. He had led his people to victory, against all odds. The underdog had risen. As the last of the Drakthar forces were defeated, Bonner stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the wreckage of the battlefield. The Drakthar Empire had fallen. The galaxy had been saved, not by the strongest, but by the most determined. Humanity had shown that they were not to be underestimated, that they could rise to any challenge and defeat even the most powerful enemies. The war was over, and the galaxy was forever changed. The humans and Freelan had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, they could achieve the impossible. The universe now knew one thing for certain: humanity would never be laughed at again. The war was over. The Drakthar Empire, once a ruthless force that had terrorized the galaxy, was no more. Their massive warships, which had struck fear into the hearts of civilizations far and wide, were now reduced to smoldering ruins, floating among the debris of their once mighty fleet. The stars that had once seemed so cold and distant now felt like a symbol of victory for the humans and their newfound allies, the Freelan. The Freelan, who had been dismissed as weak and insignificant by the galaxy's more powerful civilizations, now stood tall. Their technological prowess, once mocked, was now recognized and respected. The very cloak technology they had once been laughed at for offering had turned the tide in the war, allowing the humans to strike when their enemies least expected it. But it wasn't just their technology that had earned them respect. It was their bravery, their willingness to fight alongside humans, their commitment to unity in the face of overwhelming odds. Humans, too, had changed. They were no longer seen as primitive and unworthy of attention. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson: never underestimate the underdog. What humans lacked in technology, they more than made up for with their courage, resilience, and unyielding spirit. The alliance with the Freelan had not only saved the galaxy from the Drakthar threat, it had proven that humanity could hold its own on the galactic stage. Captain Bonner stood on the bridge of his ship, staring out at the stars. The victory was sweet, but it was bittersweet as well. He had lost so much in this war, so many friends, so many comrades. Sergeant Riley's face flashed in his mind, The image of his best friend's final moments still etched in his memory. The emotional weight of the battle, of the sacrifices made, was something he would carry with him for the rest of his life. The cost of war was never measured in victory alone. It was measured in the lives that had been lost along the way. As he stood there, lost in thought, Bonner couldn't help but reflect on how far humanity had come. When the Freelan had first contacted Earth, they had been a planet on the brink of destruction, a species that had no idea what they were getting into. They had fought with everything they had, and in the process, they had earned the respect of an entire galaxy. The Freelan were no longer the galaxy's joke. They were no longer the weak, defenseless species that had been laughed at by the Drakthar and others. They had proven themselves, not only through their technology, but through their loyalty to humanity. They had stood together, shoulder to shoulder with the humans, and they had won. The Drakthar had been defeated, their empire shattered, and the Freelan had played a crucial role in the victory. Captain Bonner smiled faintly as he looked at the image of the Freelan leader, Talia. She had been the first to extend her hand to humanity, the first to believe that they could work together. Without her, without the Freelan's help, the war would have been lost. He had grown to respect her, not just for her intellect and bravery, but for her unwavering belief in humanity's potential. "We did it, Bonner." Talia's voice echoed in his mind. She had been there every step of the way, fighting alongside him and his crew. We did it together. The alliance between humanity and the Freelan was now unbreakable. The two species had forged a bond that would carry them forward into the future. The galaxy, once a fractured and war-torn place, was now looking toward a new era of peace. There would still be challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long while, there was hope. The idea that they could rebuild the galaxy together, stronger than before, was no longer just a dream. It was a reality. As Bonner walked to the observation deck, he looked down at the planet below. Earth, once on the brink of annihilation, was now a key player in galactic diplomacy. The humans had proven themselves not just as survivors, but as leaders. It had taken everything they had to get to this point, but they had done it. And they were stronger for it. But even as the galaxy began to rebuild, Bonner couldn't forget the price that had been paid. The war had taken so much: lives, homes, families. The people they had lost, the soldiers who had given everything for the greater good, could never be replaced. The pain of those losses would stay with him forever, and he knew that every victory would come with its own cost. As Earth prepared to take its place among the stars, Captain Bonner reflected on what it meant to be human. It wasn't just about survival. It was about fighting for what was right, about standing together even when the odds seemed impossible. The humans had faced down a galaxy of enemies, and they had emerged victorious. They had earned their place in the universe, not just as survivors, but as leaders. The underdog had risen, and now the galaxy was theirs to rebuild. Bonner knew the road ahead would be difficult. There would be new threats, new challenges, but for the first time in a long time, there was hope. And in the face of that hope, the losses, the pain, and the sacrifices felt a little less heavy. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy. Together with the Freelan, they would build a future that was stronger, brighter, and more united than ever before. As he looked up at the stars, Captain Bonner felt a sense of peace. The galaxy, once a place of endless conflict, was now on the brink of a new era, and humanity would be there, standing tall, leading the way forward. The underdogs had won, and the future was theirs to shape. The galaxy would never be the same again. In the quiet of space, as the ship drifted toward Earth, Bonner knew one thing for certain: the fight for survival was over. Now it was time to fight for a future of peace, hope, and unity. And for the first time, he allowed himself to believe it was possible. The universe had been forever changed, and humanity was ready to embrace the challenge of rebuilding it, stronger than ever.